What is happening, AJ Game Dude here, and back in the day, Squaresoft was a thing. They made their RPGs, they made Final Fantasy, stuff like that. But effectively what ended up happening was Square ended up buying Enix after failing to create a Final Fantasy movie that was back in 2003? Called Final Fantasy, and it was a god-awful, super terrible movie that they put way too much money into. Ended up bankrolling the company and failing miserably as a result. So they I can't remember if it was them that bought Enix or Enix bought Square, but either way they combined and became the Square Enix that we know and love today. But I don't know if anyone's ever noticed which Square games are actually Enix properties and things like that. So I thought to myself, okay, so during the weekend I searched up Enix and thought, okay, what games in the current Square Enix catalog are actually Enix games? And I was quite surprised, and I did actually want to kind of share this little anyone could Google it and look it up, but I thought that this might be fascinating for the kind of person who thinks oh, I could probably watch this video instead of actually Googling the actual page itself, because it's not like I would have had that thought before. And even if I did have the thought, would I Google it? Probably not. So I thought, you know what, I'll just bring it to people's attentions instead. So effectively, this is kind of like a list of Enix games that we kind of have, and they're mostly in Japan, unfortunately, but there are some very interesting, noteworthy names that we're going to be seeing throughout this list. So let's just kind of go down and have a quick look at it. So the first and most immediate one people are going to see is going to be the Dragon Quest series. I didn't know that Dragon Quest was originally an Enix property and not a Square property. So Dragon Quest obviously came out, and then that inspired people to create Final Fantasy. So the fact that Enix was ahead of the curve and then Square followed suit, and now we have two massive RPG franchises under the same umbrella with Square Enix. So I thought that was okay, that's actually quite fascinating as things go. I would never have honestly seen that coming. But then I keep looking down a little bit and I'm okay, sure. There's some interesting titles. Ogre Battle. I think they're actually mostly in Japan. I think North America did get a few games here and there. They got Dragon Quest 2 and 3. What's other mean? Published by a company unrelated to Enix in this region. So in English we did get Dragon Quest 1, 2, 3. No, actually, GB, the GVC version of 3 though. 4 and all the rest of it. ActRaiser was recently re-released on Switch, last I remember. But yeah, so there's a bunch of sort of random games or bits and pieces here and there, and then I go down to here and I'm Star Ocean, and then I look back at it and I'm so Star Ocean was also another RPG franchise that was under Enix before being put under Square. And then Square did do some interesting things. So obviously, Star Ocean still very much a continuing franchise even now. We now have the sixth game in the franchise being Divine Force. So I think Enix only made up to 3, I think it was. And again, I'm purely just going off of this Wikipedia page. Also, Tomb Raider, that was another one. That was an Enix game before Square, combined with them, whatever, merged with them. So we got Tomb Raider 3, for example. I'm not too sure how accurate that is actually. Do we have any of the other Tomb Raiders? No, I don't see it. Okay, so I only see Tomb Raider 3 though. I'm just kind of going down the list, but Star Ocean. No, that's the GBC Star Ocean game, or the Game Boy Color game. So it was only up to Star Ocean till the End of Time, which is the third Star Ocean game. So Star Ocean 4 onwards were Square Enix titles, and that's where people saw that franchise kind of dip in quality, because 4 was fine. Its platinum trophy was god awful by all accounts, because it should not be this time consuming, a lot of missable stuff. But I feel Star Ocean 5 did do things a lot better than 4. and then of course now we have 6, which is the Divine Force. So up till Star Ocean 3, that's kind of like how long they lasted. But Tri-Ace was always the developer, so I guess, you know, maybe we can just kind of blame Tri-Ace for this. But I saw another interesting game on this list, and that was specifically, I wonder if I can find it, because I know I saw it just before, Valkyrie Profile, which is also another property that is now under the Square umbrella. So the reason why I'm kind of bringing this specific game up is because we recently did get Valkyrie Elysium a couple of years ago, and if you did actually get the, I think it was the limited edition, not limited, but like the digital deluxe edition, you'd also get a port of Valkyrie Profile, which was the last Valkyrie game that we got. So the last 2 Valkyrie games put together in a single package that you could buy and play, which I thought was actually kind of fascinating, because I didn't know that was actually a PS1 RPG, or the fact that it was as old, you know, that it released in 99. Looking at it, yeah, you could probably assume about as much, but until you actually look into it and are like, oh, I didn't know that this thing existed, that's actually quite fascinating. And so I was just kind of going down this list of like games, trying to be like, okay, let me see if I can try and make more sense out of like some of the games on here. Like, oh, here we go. So Star Ocean, the second story, which is Star Ocean 2 right there. And of course we did get remakes of Star Ocean 2 and First Departure. So First Departure and Second Story, and we got Second Story R as well. But yeah, so many of these franchises still continue to exist even to this day. And this just turned out to be a very interesting sort of like Google and kind of look down the list. Granted, it was just like a single Wikipedia page, but even so, I was just like, huh, well, I didn't think that was the case. In saying that, this was the one I was looking for, was Itadaki Street. Now, so the reason why I was looking for this particular game was actually because in Japan they released a game to coincide with the 20th anniversary. Was it 20th? Sorry, 30th anniversary of, well, actually 10, 20, 30, yeah, 30th anniversary of the Square Enix and Dragon Quest series. So Dragon Quest originally released in 1986, and Final Fantasy was 1987. So in 2017, a game was released called Itadaki Street, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest 30th Anniversary something or other. I can't remember the full title. So they pretty much, if you don't know, Itadaki Street is kind of like a board game where you kind of move your pieces around and things like that. And instead of like making like a proper Itadaki Street game, they used properties or characters from Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy, put them together in a single game, and then released it. And honestly, like, if you weren't interested in Itadaki Street, but you did like, Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, this would be more likely to bring you in from 2 different franchises into like a very much a themed board game type title, pretty much. So I thought that was also kind of like an interesting thing as well. This is just like sort of me going down the list and being like, okay, would never have seen that coming, but sure enough. And I think, if I remember correctly, April of 2003 is actually when Square and Enix did actually, merge together to make Square Enix that we now know today. Whether we equal parts like or hate. Yeah, April 1st, 2003, which anyone could have seen as some sort of April Fool's joke. Though I suppose that sort of thing wasn't really all that popular at the time in Japan, but it is what it is. With that being said, let me know what you guys think about this sort of like interesting look back in a piece of gaming history from back in the day. Sure, like, we always knew about Squaresoft for the Final Fantasy franchise and things like that, but never did we truly understand what Enix was up to during this period of time. So yeah, do let me know what you guys think about everything that we what I've looked at, covered, and maybe just something else interesting about gaming history as well in the comments below. I'd be interested to see if I can make more videos around, small pieces of history that we had back in the day. Like, for example, hot coffee, what that was to San Andreas, or the bondage nun assassins from Hitman, Absolution, or old E3s from back in the day, like the whole Ridge Racer meme that came out from the first time that they showed off the PS3, or the whole you need a second job to afford the PS3. Some small interesting kind of bits and pieces of gaming history that have been left in the past, people reference, but do you ever kind of wonder where it kind of came from? I'm kind of thinking about that sort of thing, but I also am not too sure about how that would even work in the YouTube algorithm, and that's probably better to just talk about news. Maybe just pop that into the comments below. Let me know what you guys think about that sort of thing. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 200 subs by the end of the year, and with all that said and done, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.